Alright, everyone out there in mandolin land, Mike Hedding here, coming to you today with a little mandolin lesson. We're going to talk more about arpeggios. So, arpeggios are playing the notes of a chord instead of strumming all the notes at once like you do when you're strumming a chord. If you play an arpeggio, usually you're playing the notes kind of one at a time. So we're taking those notes of the chord and playing them individually. So a lot of reasons this is really good practice. One, it's really good ear training to hear how those notes in the chord relate to the chords that someone else are playing, right? If someone is strumming a G chord, you can play the notes of a G chord like in a solo or a lead. So that's really good ear training to hear how those arpeggio notes sound related to the chord that someone else is playing, right? It's also going to give you the safe notes in that scale or key that you're playing in. Obviously, if someone is strumming a G chord, playing the notes of a G chord in your lead, right, would make sense that those notes would sound really good. And lastly, we're going to get a bunch of practice transitioning all over the neck. So I did a lesson in the past called simple arpeggios, which I would check out first. But this lesson, we're specifically going to focus on transitioning. So we're going to work on smoothing out our transitions of our left hand so we can jump around the neck without a break in the sound, and really just slowing down, smoothing those transitions out so we get really comfortable playing all over the neck. All right, let's jump into the lesson. Let's break it down. Okay, so to jump into this lesson, let's strum just a 2-finger G chord to get that sound in our mind. And just a little revamp, and again, I recommend checking out the simple arpeggios lesson I did first. But remember, an arpeggio in the most basic form is 3 notes. A major chord or a minor chord is made up of 3 notes. The 1, 3, and 5 notes of the scale. So you might have heard it as the 1, 3, 5. Those are the notes that make up those are the arpeggio notes that make up the chord, right? So in our case, if we have a G major scale, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. If we take the 1, the 3rd, and the 5th, and then we're back to the 1 again, right? That's how we play an arpeggio. And I recommend strumming the chord too, so you can hear how it sounds. So you can do a little bit of strumming. And I'm just kind of going up and down those notes. What I recommend is saying 1, 3, 5, 1, 1, 3, 5, 1. You're trying to hear how those notes relate to the chord. Eventually, you might even be able to pick out one of those notes individually and say, oh, that's the 3, that's the 5, that's the root, or the root. That's what we're practicing, is hearing those notes and how it relates back to that strumming chord that we're playing, right? And I'll include some vamping tracks so you can practice this, okay? So again, that's our first 4 notes right there. But now we're going to go up another octave, so we're going to practice it this way. And then we're going to shift. We're going to move our first finger up to that 5th fret on the D string. So instead of going with our 3rd finger like we normally would if we were staying down here, we're going to go shift. And then put our first finger there, which becomes our new root note. And then we're going to play the 9th fret on the D string, 5th fret on the A, and then normally you would grab this with your pinky on the 10th fret, right? So that's the next arpeggio. So we have, and what we're doing is we're going shift, and then right here, instead of playing that with our pinky, we're going to shift again, which is this shape, now up another octave. So shift up to the 10th fret, 3rd finger 14, 1st finger 10, and then pinky 15. Notice I'm using that same finger pattern. So it's those same 4 notes, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, right? And I'm just shifting, shift, shift, shift back down to 5, shift back down. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. So we have let's do it really slow. Shift, shift. So a couple things you can do when you're practicing it. One, you don't have to do just one note on each. This could also be a good warm-up exercise. Maybe you do a couple notes on each. Or maybe you go. Or maybe you do tremolo. You're just practicing getting those shapes down. And again, how it sounds, right? So that's G major, right? And if you hit a clunker, my advice is just keep moving. Okay, that's G major. Slide your first finger down 1 fret to 1, and that's G minor. So instead of 1, 3, 5, which makes a major, if we do 1 flat 3, so flat 3 means taking the 3 and moving it down lower in pitch 1 fret. That's how we would do a minor chord. So now we have open 3, open, shift, now 8, 5th fret, shift, 13. So everything's the same except for that one note is just 1 lower. Try with, and then go back to major. Minor. Okay, so that's G major and G minor. Now let's get into doing it with no open strings at all. So this will be A major. So again, strum your A. Now we're going to do 2, 6, 2. So 2nd fret on the low string, 6th fret on the low string, and then 2nd fret on the D. Shift up to 7th fret, 11th fret, 7, 12. So it's that same idea that we were doing in G. Now everything's just 2 frets higher. Here you can shift up again to 12. And then you have, what is that, 16, 12, 17. Shift back down to 7, 11, 7, 2, 6, 2. The other thing you can do with arpeggios that sounds cool is mix them up in like an interesting order, right? So you could go, or maybe play those same notes in a different order. You know, again, that's how a lot of little melodies are made. It's like doing a little rhythm on an arpeggio or something like that, right? So that's closed position, right? No open strings, right? So you can move that shape. You can move it wherever you want. You can move it up, everything up 1 fret. This would be B flat. Strum to get the chord right. You can move it up to C, 5th fret. That'd be way up there, but you could do it. So again, you can move that shape around once you get it down, right? Really listen to the sound. If you hear an out of place note, then you probably, you didn't play it right. So again, let's do a minor version of that. So A minor, instead of the 6th fret, we're going to use the 5th fret. Now 7, 10, 7, and then, what is that, 12, 15, 12, 17. So that's A minor, right? Same idea. Okay, let's look at doing a C one. The other thing I should mention is once you do these, you could also move that up or down the strings this way, right? So that'd be like E. So I won't go through every single shape and what it is, but remember with mandolin, if something works on one set of strings, you know, it works on the next set of strings up too. And there's lots of different ways to do these. I'm just showing you certain ones to help you practice, all right? Let's do a C arpeggio. So we're going to start on the 5th fret of the G string with our 3rd finger, and then 2nd and 5th on the D. So that's our 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. So in all the previous examples, we were doing the shifting with our 1st finger, right? We were going shift, shift, but all with our 1st finger, right? You want to be able to shift with any finger. So we're going to go, in this example, we're going to go 5, 2, 5, and then shift up to 10, and then do 10, 7, 10, which is the same shape, just up another octave, and then we have 8 up here. If you slide that up 2 frets, that's a D. C. So a little example is you could take your, like a G, C, D, right? Like a little basic progression. So you could go. So I'm just playing like an arpeggio for each of those chords. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and C, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and D, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you know, or go back to G in between, right? So again, you can create your own little chord progression, and since you're only playing notes of the chord, you're really spelling out each of those changes to show the listener that you really understand that the chords are changing there. So that's really important, right? So again, that's a C. We're working on shifting with our 3rd finger there. Okay. Let's do a C minor one. Is just, instead of the 2nd fret, we're going to use the 1st fret. So we have, and then 10, 6, 10, 8. Another thing that's important to remember is that the minor version is only 1 note different than the major version. So instead of trying to memorize all these different ways to play it, what I recommend is just memorizing the major version and then just memorizing that you can modify that 1 note. So instead of the major 3rd, we have the flatted 3rd, right? Same with D minor. Mix them up. That's D minor there.